Hey everybody, I'm Krista,
I'm Tracy.
and we are coming at you today with more of a response video to the uh, press conference from Health Secretary. It was his first official, and that was RFK Jr. because we have talked about the MAHA movement a few weeks ago. Actually, it may have been a month now. So we wanted to kind of come back to this because we were scheduled today to talk about brain chemicals or chemicals in the brain anyway. Tracy's done a lot of research on this. So I feel like it kind of all works together. And it may not. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
So, for
uh,
those of you who are tuning into the podcast, we're doing this again Zoom.
yes,
So
yes, we
that's
are.
why it's going to sound a little bit different. And
Because we are working through some kinks, doing switching over to this
right,
Zoom method so that we can have video and audio now.
right. So, welcome to the podcast. If you're joining us there,
And welcome if you are joining us via our new YouTube channel.
hello, darling.
Yeah, now you get to see us talk with our hands.
Okay.
All right. So, do we want to talk about let's go ahead and talk about the chemicals in the brains and what it's doing to us because I think that was what we were originally scheduled to talk about, and it may lead us into why we are going to talk about the autism response to the
Well,
or health secretary.
yeah, he made the well, he made a lot of people mad, but he made the comment it was a mysterious environmental toxin. And then by September, they were going to find out what was causing the epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
But before all of this had happened, because Wyatt is autistic.
Yeah.
And
To
so,
explain for since we have possibly new people via YouTube, explain who Wyatt is.
okay, so Wyatt is my oldest son. And I have always wondered why he was autistic, what happens to how does this happen? So the things that I have come up with myself it's some of it is hereditary and some of it is environmental.
Which the Autism Society agrees with you on.
Okay. I can see the certain hereditary traits passed down through our family. I can pick it out. If we go to a family reunion, I can pick them out. They have Asperger's. They have Asperger's. They have Asperger's. They have
Well,
Asperger's.
I think as we've learned more about it and you've talked to more doctors and this, that, than the other, we can see who has
It's yeah,
previously undiagnosed people going
right,
about their life. You can see those things.
right. And I there was actually studies that can identify Asperger's on a gene, which it kills me because they want to lump all the autism disorders together now,
Mm-hmm.
whereas I think me personally, this is my opinion, people, so don't get all up in an uproar. I
Opinion
think
based on experience.
opinion based on experience and research that I have done and pulled that you just about can't find anymore. I don't know why they've taken it down.
They have taken some down. I was struggling to find things that we have actually talked about before, and I
Right.
looked for specific things and could not find it.
I could not find the article about where they had found the genetic, where the gene for Asperger's. And
Well, when you go on now, like when I was reading through the Autism Society and stuff like that, they are now saying there is no specific gene that they
right.
can pinpoint.
Well, there is. I remember reading it. I remember those scientists.
Well, there's been a lot of studies removed,
Right.
which is,
So, anyway,
yeah.
one of the things that was very big for me while my kids were growing up, still is, was because we tend to be very emotional people. And so my family tends to uh, be on like things like Prozac to even us out. Okay. And things that the reason so many people are on these things is because the hormones and the processes in the brain are not evening out naturally. Okay. So
Hmm.
the three main chemicals, and I wrote all this down so I could get it correct. So uh, I'm going to kind of read it that way I don't mess it up because I tend to get on squirreled a little bit if you don't keep me focused. But anyway, so the three main brain chemicals, say that fast three times. Woo, you're going to make me
I'm sorry. I
motion
was like
sickness.
looking down because I have this little computer today and it's like I can feel it in my neck.
Oh no, you need to sit it up on some
Yeah,
blocks.
that's what I'm trying to do. So y'all keep
Okay.
talking, y'all ignore
You
me.
just look at me and pay attention to me, and then she'll fix her computer. All right. So the three main chemicals are norepinephrine. Y'all have heard people on TV talk about that one. Serotonin and dopamine. Okay, everybody knows about serotonin and dopamine and serotonin uptake, reuptake inhibitors, and all that stuff. All right, if you have drops in these chemicals, you have changes in your brain. All right, remember your brain is an organ just like your heart and your kidney, but your brain pretty much controls everything. So if you have, all right, so like let's say you have a stroke
Let's
and
not.
part of your brain that controls, huh?
Let's not.
And the part of the brain that controls the right side of your body has a stroke, you lose function in that side of the body, or you have problems on that side, the side that the brain had a stroke in, right?
Hmm.
Okay, does that make sense?
Hmm.
Okay, well, what if the part of the brain that controls emotions was not functioning correctly? Okay, that's why so many people are what they consider emotionally unstable now. They can't control their feelings. They they get irate. They start screaming at people. Road rage. They want to get
I
in
don't know
people's
nothing about that.
face. Think of all of the people in who see somebody wearing a red hat
Oh
and they
gosh.
just walk up to them in a restaurant and start screaming at them because they cannot control their emotions.
Or, even 20 years ago when they did the same thing to people wearing the jihadis and stuff like that.
Whatever. Whoever you don't like, if you can't control yourself, you have an emotional problem. So that's one thing, when he was really little, he couldn't really control his emotions. And so I started looking into all of that. Why? Why? So one of the things that kept standing out to me and kept standing out to me in all these studies were household chemicals. Um, Case Western Reserve School of Medicine did a study published in the Journal of Natural Neuroscience. I don't know how many of you like to read, nature neuroscience magazines, but I find them fascinating.
And I find them wah, 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 wah.
Researchers analyzed over 1,800 chemicals that humans may be exposed to in everyday life. And we're talking common compounds in personal care products, disinfectants, uh, electronics, anything flame retardant. Think about how many baby clothes are flame retardant
Oh,
now.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
All
Teflon.
furniture, all furniture is flame retardant now. And you're
Well,
sitting on it in your, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
In your
It's still going to
shorts.
burn.
Yeah. But it's still got those. Okay, so we have these specialized cells types that generate a protective insulation around our nerve cells called oligodendrocytes. I'm going to call them ollies for shorts because I don't want to keep saying that long word. And while children are really young, those are developing around the cells of children. Okay. All of these detergents, these antimicrobials, these what am I trying to say? Disinfectants, microbials, just, those kinds of things. They are absorbed into the skin and they actually break down those ollies around those cells. So the brain does not develop correctly.
You mean to tell me that a wall can work?
Yes, yes. So a
And
lot of
our
the things,
cells have walls.
yes, our cells have protective insulation and disinfectants, preservatives, surfactants, anything that says effectively lifts dirt and grease for cleaner surfaces. That's a surfactant. Fabric softeners, hair conditioners, all of that stuff will affect your brain cells.
So now think about all of these things that are being sprayed in our food and on
Yeah.
our property and in the air. And
They're in everything you use. It's just like go find three things in your house that aren't made in China. You know what I'm saying? It's like
well,
go under
even
your
I
kitchen
mean,
sink and find three products that don't have these things in them.
yeah, I mean,
These chemicals are called quats because they're quaternary ammonium compounds. And my southern accent probably made me say it wrong, but
if for a second I thought you said twats, but
quats, like quaternary, like
so
four.
so we can just call them
Right.
the quat twats.
The quat-twats, yes. These compounds, while they have found in studies, now listen to this though, while they have been found in studies to disrupt brain development, for some reason they won't link them to ASD. Many.
Well, isn't that like the we talked about the red food dyes that they got rid of 40 years ago in makeup because it was cancerous, but they didn't get rid of it in food until recently?
Right.
It's the same thing. They knew.
Oh, yeah. So to identify them in your products before you buy them, or if you want to go throw them away, whatever, anything ending in onium chloride, ONIUM chloride, like benzocolonium chloride, that kind of thing. Or it'll say quaternium products. Anything that claims to be antibacterial or antimicrobial, basically you need to go in there and look and see if they have them. Now they don't
Oh
have
my
to use
gosh.
those things.
Think about all the products that came out in 2020 that's literally what everyone you have to have the microbiome whatever the everything.
Antibacterial, antimicrobial. Well, that's funny because in 2018, 1 in 44 kids had autism. In 2020, 1 in 36. In 2022, it was 1 in 31.
Yeah, I have those stats. Hmm.
Think about
So,
that.
so it's increased since that
Right,
massive influx of those chemicals.
right. I was hoping I had that stat right, but
Yeah,
I
that's the same
remember.
stats I have.
Yeah. But they don't have to use those, y'all. I mean, if you watch us long enough, the essential oils from garlic, ginger, thyme, oregano, cinnamon, clove. I mean, we use those things. Or vinegar. I have a squirt bottle of vinegar. That's what I clean my glass stove with.
Throw some orange peels or lemon peels in some vinegar, and it's a
Yes,
great
all of
cleaning
those.
product.
Yeah, all of those are disinfectants. Garlic and ginger are actually antimicrobial. Hydrogen peroxide is a disinfectant. And did you know, I just learned, and you probably already know this, but I just found out if you take a squirt bottle and go outside with hydrogen peroxide and squirt it, just spray it out in your yard, it kills fleas and ticks and it keeps aphids and stuff like that away out of your
I did
yard.
not know that. Is it harmful to like dogs and cats and stuff though?
No, no, it's perfectly safe.
Okay, but that would be really expensive. I have a huge yard.
It would, but I'm thinking, where we sit.
Oh yeah, just like the little area.
Yeah. Or when I'm out there working, like I could use citronella, hydrogen peroxide, you know what I'm saying? And
Peppermint
be,
oil.
yeah, and be bug free.
I mean,
And it
maybe we
smells
should.
fabulous.
Hey, maybe we should look into that.
We should.
That
And then
damn satellite. It's going to be out tomorrow now.
I know. And now, I mean, not trying to tell people that this is going to work. But, honey garlic, and I keep honey garlic apple cider mix, and that's actually an antibiotic. But, y'all do your own research on that. But I'm not going to go any more into detail on that. But to me, all of these things that they have been just shoving at us because we need to be clean. You need to kill the viruses. You need to kill what has happened to us ever since we started killing all the bacteria and killing all the viruses and using all these chemicals. I mean, think about how healthy everybody was in the 50s when they
Okay.
got dirt under their fingernails
Well, and I was going to say,
and drank out of the hoses.
remember the statistic that was it pre 1970, over 50% of the population lived on farms. And so
Yeah.
the kids had their hands in the dirt and the poop and this, that, and the other.
Yeah. And they got exposed to all this stuff and their bodies were able to develop immunity.
To play devil's advocate, because somebody's going to respond, we didn't have as high of technology for and being able to diagnose certain things and stuff like that. And I can see both sides. But our immune systems are not what they were.
But you can see when someone is autistic to the point where they can't, especially the 25% that are nonverbal.
Correct.
Okay. Back in the 50s, we did not have as many nonverbal, extremely autistic people as we do now.
Right. They were all they were all lumped into the mentally disabled group.
Right. Whether you want to say we have more technology now to discern who's autistic and who's not.
There's still way more.
You can't, that's true, but you cannot not know a nonverbal autistic person when you see one.
And look at our technology has not changed that much since 2018 to 2022 when it comes to diagnosis. And look at it's almost doubled.
Right. Right.
So
yeah. What I did find interesting, and I don't know if you did this too, but among the study, I guess we're going on into the next thing. It used to be, well, back up a little bit, 84% are male and 16% are female, autistic wise.
Which is interesting because as of right now, all the ones that I know, other than like Wyatt, are female.
So that stat is shifting as we go more into the chemicals that affect hormones.
Okay. Which makes sense. Which makes sense that there is a tie there.
There's a shift. There's also a shift when the survey was done of 500 of 500,000 people. 51% of autistic people were white. 22.9% were Hispanic or Latino. 14.3% were Black or African American. 0.2% were Native or Islanders. 5.9% were Asian.
But that has shifted now.
This past year in 2024, it has shifted, and the autism rate seems to be shifting more towards the growing population of autism tends to be going more towards Black Asians
and Native.
Black, Native, and Asian descent. And it's unknown or undetermined reasons where some people are arguing more people are being able to go get help or being able to afford more help. I think any mother or grandmother who's raising a child, if they can go get I mean, maybe I'm just ignorant, but do we not have clinics that you can take a child to or a hospital that you can take a child to when they're sick? Do you not? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I don't know the statistics for that because, it seems like, and I mean, I don't know. So again, it could be, because we just don't know, but it seems like there's programs to help everybody, Medicaid, WIC, all these things. So they should be able to go get
I'm looking
diagnostics and clinics.
out my window and I see goats. I'm not supposed to see goats.
Do we need to end this and come back to it?
Uh, Wyatt, I need you to go put up goats. So anyway, continue.
But yeah, so I would think, and so yes, and that might attribute some as to why we're seeing an increase in certain populations. Um, I would also think that cultural and economic issues can affect those if environmental factors affect it, which everyone agrees, all the studies, all the, Autism Society, CDC, everybody agrees that environmental factors play a role. So
Right.
if that's true, then I would think that the environmental impacts on culture and all of that within different ethnicity groups
Yeah, I was just reading that
play a
when
fact
we got on.
or play a thing. So let's
Can I go back real
yeah,
quick? I want to
absolutely.
name some of the name brands real quick that have those in them that you need to really be careful with.
Okay, hit us.
Clorox,
Oh God.
yes. If
Isn't
you
Clorox
put
supposed
Clorox,
to just be Billy? Oh, well, I guess like all they're like Clorox Kitchen and Clorox. Okay.
Lysol, Pine Sol, most everything SC Johnson Family Company.
Well, aren't they one of the ones that had the big vaccine, Johnson and Johnson?
Well, they had the one of the original vaccines, but they made them stop making it because they wouldn't make it the way they were told. 3M products and Renown and some multi-purpose Windex product.
And we're good to go. Okay.
Awesome.
So I think we're going to switch now to talking directly about, now that we've kind of talked about like the chemicals in the brains and stuff, I want to respond directly to the press conference, and kind of like people's reactions. And I think that's what kind of made us switch this topic up a little bit, because we were already going to talk about chemicals and how they affect the brain, or chemicals on the brain. And I want to go further into some of the chemicals that are in our environment that are going to affect us, but we'll do a separate one that's more about like the agricultural chemicals, on a different one. But we had two very different reactions come up from people around us. And I thought it was very interesting because I can see both sides. So one person was, hey, I'm tired of seeing these, autism has blessed our family. Autism is beautiful. Memes going around, because if you haven't experienced what it's like with a nonverbal, violent adult child who needs 24-hour care, this is what it's like. It's sleepless nights. It's,
And she's talking about the 25% who are nonverbal, extremely
extreme. Yeah.
extreme autistic.
And she went through with basically how it has, changed the dynamic of their family. And I know there have been a lot of cases of divorce, which, if you don't consider divorce a destroying of your family, then I mean, so
Right. Right.
so, and then on the other hand, I had a very close friend of mine who was like, who had a knee-jerk reaction to it. And she studies sociology and neurodivergent, stuff, and has a daughter who is autistic, and she is autistic well, or on the spectrum. And her view was, I'm married, I have a life, I have children, I'm functional, I have a job, my child, we've done everything and it has not destroyed our family. This, it is beautiful. It just makes her a kind, caring, loving, emotional child. And like, I get that. I get the knee jerk reactions, because if you listen to something, and I don't think he did a good job of saying that 25% in the original speech. He there, that came out more when the backlash happened, and he did an interview, and he was like, I of course was not talking about every anybody with autism, you have to understand there's 25% of this that community that is this. He is
Did
like,
you
and
watch the video?
I cannot watch him. I
I
know he has
started watching it.
I know he has vocal cord damage, and that's what makes him sound that way, but I literally, like, it screws with me. I cannot listen to him, and I have tried and tried and tried to find the transcript of the speech, but they have hidden that from search. The only thing that comes up when I put in all the different variations is clips of his speech on YouTube or people's negative responses to it as far as articles go. I cannot find anywhere where anyone has posted the transcript so that you can read it. And I don't think that's fair for people who have audio issues or cannot hear, because then they don't get to read exactly what he says. They can only read articles that have been posted in response. But I did find several that had like direct quotes from him. And I did find uh, some transcripts from his interview with like Sean Hannity that he did afterwards, where he was talking about the 25% of the population, etc.
Right.
But I will fully admit I have not listened word for word to his whole speech because I cannot stomach listening to his voice. And I mean, it's not his fault. It's just one of those voices that just, it makes me cringe. I can't do it. I mean, if it made
I
if it,
started listening to it. I haven't listened to all of it, but
but I can see like what my whole point was,
he
like,
got very emotional.
yeah, I mean, I think he truly cares
He
about
does.
health and all this stuff. But I feel like, everyone's justified in having a knee-jerk reaction based on their own experiences. But to group everybody in that together is a disservice, because if
Yes.
you only have experience with the lower end of the spectrum
Right.
and you've never experienced anyone on the high end of the spectrum,
Right.
then you can't say, oh, it's a blessing, because to these people it may not be. And if you've only ever experienced anybody on the high end of the spectrum, then you don't know what it's like to have someone who's on the bald end of the spectrum. So you can't say it's the destroyer of worlds. Like, we're not talking about Thanos here. It's not cut and dry. Like,
I don't think it's fair for anyone to put it all. I don't think it's fair for anyone for them to have just this autism spectrum. You need to have classes
I
of,
agree. And I don't understand why all these different things are now like ADHD is now on the autism spectrum. Sensory processing disorder is now on the autism spectrum. Asperger's, Tourette, like all these things are on the spectrum.
yeah,
And they're very, like, Matt was diagnosed when he was little with a mild case of sensory processing disorder. We had some therapy, we've gotten through it. The only thing you ever really notice now is he has some aversion to food textures now and then.
right.
That's
But
it.
everybody does that I know.
Yeah, but no one would ever consider him autistic
Right.
or on the spectrum or
Right.
anything like that. So why is sensory processing disorder a mild form, excuse me,
It really,
on the same spectrum as someone who is nonverbal, can't control emotions, thrashes about, non-social? Like, that's ridiculous.
it is ridiculous. And as a parent,
Sorry, I choked on my own spit, guys. It
it's
happens.
okay. You got excited. As a parent of someone who has gone through a lot of these phases from
Mhm.
being a 5-year old in his own world with emotional issues, who couldn't control, who did put holes in the walls, who did scream and yell and have fits.
And even now, you are going through this whole process of getting him,
Now he does control himself
but
much.
he's never going to live alone, probably.
I think he can live alone. We are going to look at getting him his own single wide on our property.
But that's still providing care. That's not sending him out into the world to be
No,
his own fully functioning adult surviving on his own with a job. He's
no
always going to have someone there providing care.
assisting, guiding him, guidance.
Right. That's what I'm
Yes,
getting at. That's this. So it's not like, we look at, like, you say you see the tendencies for the Asperger's and stuff in
yes.
dad was still able to find mom, obviously, go to college, own a business. Was he always easy to work with? No. Is he easy to work with now? No.
Do I think he could have graduated college without mom? No,
But his family probably would have helped him because he was the baby.
they weren't.
I just like, but the thing is, he did find someone. He did have a life. He did have children. He has had a very successful life. Um, there are plenty of people out there that do in variations of severity. We grew up with someone in church back in the 80s.
Dad would not be considered severe, and most people would not even realize he nowadays, as they say, it is on the spectrum.
Right, but he has some quirks that you recognize from
Dad
talking to
is not
doctors and stuff.
right. My personal opinion is Dad is not autistic. Dad has a chemical imbalance in the brain due to something hereditary.
So is a lot of these diagnosed people the same way?
I think so. It's a combination of hereditary and a lot environmental nowadays, chemicals and things like that.
So if
I
that's
think
the
the
case,
environmental, my opinion is the environmental aspect of it is overshadowing, is taking the hereditary parts of it and making them, amplifying them and making them worse.
and see, I actually agree with that. And there are studies that agree with that, but
Because if
they're hiding
Wyatt,
that.
I think, my opinion, if I had not been exposed to all of the environmental shit that I had been exposed to,
Well, putrid.
and I was fixing to say, because I was smoking and I wanted to quit smoking, and they put me on Wellbutrin.
Which is ironic because a few years later, my
There was a
sister-in-law,
huge lawsuit.
well, no, because remember, my sister-in-law, they told her, the military doctors told her she could not take Wellbutrin while pregnant because it caused issues. But
Yeah,
your doctors put you on Wellbutrin
a double
pregnant.
freaking dose.
And then there was a lawsuit.
Right, that it caused autism.
But come on. The military
So,
doctors are not great. And even they knew.
right. So
So
if
there's,
you took all the environmental factors out of me with Wyatt, he would probably be like that. Just the genetic
part of it.
version of it.
So in your opinion, the environmental factors are exacerbating.
Correct.
Well, and you and I have had this conversation before.
That's why I blame myself.
But you didn't know. You thought you were doing right. Just like all these people thought they were doing right when they took the jab. Like, you and I have compared this to cancer before. And before everyone freaks out, listen to us. Everyone knows that cigarettes cause cancer. But technically, you have to have the gene for the lung cancer.
And it's not the cigarette, it's the tar and
but all those chemicals going into your body, because they always say you never know which cigarette it is.
The terpenes and things like that.
You can smoke 96 years of your life and be some old crotchety woman with a gravel voice and never have lung cancer.
Joanna.
You can smoke one cigarette and end up with lung cancer.
You
You
can never
don't,
smoke and end up with lung cancer.
right. So they blame it on secondhand smoke, but really it's you have the genetic coding and those chemicals and stuff in those cigarettes
Well,
exacerbate it.
you don't necessarily have to have that. You don't have to have that gene to have lung cancer. You can act, cancer is a genetically modified gene. So if you have smoked enough, you can actually mutate your mutate genes, and um, like you're going to end up with
I,
COPD. And
again,
you're
but it's environmental factors that create that
correct.
environment. But if you were genetically disposed to it, you're pretty much going to get it if you put those environmental factors in there. So why are we not looking at autism the same way?
Right. If you're genetically exposed to,
Or inclined to,
inclined to have
and then
chromosomal disorders, because I actually was tested for um, the chromosome disorders, and I actually have a it's and I don't know where we got it from. I don't know what side of the family it came from, but it's actually an Asian Pacific genetic disorder. Do I look Asian? No. It the doctors seem to think it's from like Native American.
I was going to say they group Pacific Islanders and Asians together, and but then some people will group like the Polynesians and the natives together and stuff.
Polynesian. That's it. It's a
So
Polynesian. And so I'm like, most Japanese people cannot, the way their body metabolizes alcohol. I have that gene. So they know, they can go in and look at genes. They know. They know. I really think they know. And I think the chemical companies are paying to keep their all this information locked down. And I know I sound like a conspiracy theorist.
adjust the tinfoil hat.
Yes.
So, all right, I pulled some stuff. We'll kind of wind it back. And
Reel it back in.
yeah, show you kind of where this was leading me. So I went on to, because of course I was having trouble pulling up the transcripts from it. So I went on to the Autism Society because they had responded. And they say, this is direct quote from the Autism Society, that autism is a complex development disability shaped by genetic, biological, and environmental factors. Okay. And they believe that leading disability organizations, scientific community, and medical experts agree that more rigorous science-based research is necessary. But then they say, quote, not speculation and oversimplified timelines. So they were responding to his quote that we will know what has caused the autism epidemic and eliminate exposures.
Right.
And so they are arguing basically again like the semantics. They're saying not speculation and oversimplified timelines. His verbiage is harmful, misleading, and unrealistic. It uses harmful language like epidemic and is inaccurate, which is inaccurate and stigmatizing.
It is an epidemic.
Well, by the definition of epidemic, it is not, because the definition of epidemic is a widespread occurrence of an infectious disease in a community at a particular time. And it's not infectious.
It's not.
That's the word that disqualifies it
Right.
from being an
So
epidemic.
what would the right word be?
That I'm not sure, but I agree that it does not meet the definition of epidemic. But I can see why the word epidemic is being used, because it's being widespread, like, and it's increasing. So, but it's not infectious.
An epidemic. also means the number of cases exceeds what is normally expected in an area.
Yeah, but it's still with infectious. So, and I guess it depends on, if you look at Oxford or Webster's or whatever, and they could have also redefined it because they redefined
An epidemic is a widespread outbreak of a disease.
outbreak of a disease. So, and they're arguing that this isn't even a disease. I could argue, see both sides, but outbreak is also kind of congruent with infectious. But it's still semantics, because the thing is, they're
Right.
not arguing that it needs more research. They're not arguing that we need answers, but they want to argue with him because it's him.
Right.
And so what they're doing is attacking the language that was used and getting people riled up because of the language that was used.
I think if people would stop acting like toddlers
and politicizing everything
and see that he is truly trying to help. When someone's trying to help you, they may not throw you the bone you want, but at least they're trying.
So, and that's what I kind of went through some of their arguments a little bit further. So they're saying, the vaccine idea has thoroughly debunked by decades of global scientific studies.
Bullshit.
But I remember years ago, there were studies done that proved it, because that's where, what's her name got on,
the blonde chick.
Yeah. And then RFK did as well. And now, ever since 2020 happened, all of that has disappeared.
Yep.
And then their quote is, "We are concerned with the lack of transparency about the proposed research and looming September deadline." They must
lack of transparency. They're getting rid of everything.
Yeah, they are trying to be transparent. So I don't understand, but they say they must include autistic individuals, caregivers, professionals, disability advocates, trusted autism organizations, and highly esteemed researchers to shape the national research agenda.
So in other words, people that they're paying.
Correct. So that's their problem, is they want to know exactly who's being chose to do the research, because in their opinion, they need to be
they're control freaks,
controlling the outcome by controlling who's included.
Right.
And then I found another not article, but it was a interview with a guy named Colin Killick, who is the executive director of Autistic Self Advocacy Network. And
it's not Colin Kaepernick. Nobody gives a fuck about what he says.
No, it's Colin Killick.
I know, I was being funny.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, this guy didn't take a knee to get on this show, I'm pretty sure. He says that he himself is autistic, and he, quote, knows people with high support needs who are non-speaking and have intellectual disabilities, and the idea that anyone of them can't hold a job, go on a date, need support, is destroyed, or family has been destroyed, is awful and untrue. Well, then how?
He doesn't know anybody who's truly
correct
autistic then.
So again, like looking at all those different things and the verbiage they're using to attack his verbiage, what is wrong with answers? Like, are we politicizing and arguing semantics instead of curiosity about potential answers? Like, why not say, okay, we want to look at what he comes up with by September, because we don't think that's long enough to do studies, and we want to look at who's going to do the studies and see where they come,
right,
and compare notes and see.
We don't agree with you, but if you're going to help study and you're going to put a lot of money into it,
let's see what happens, because he said there will be 15 grants to 15 groups of top scientists in the world who are going to look at all possible culprits within the next year to find answers.
Right.
So they're going to take studies that have already been done and researchers that have already done stuff. And some of them may even already be researchers who have done it.
Probably one of
So,
my clot researches.
so how is that idea not being
How is it
transparent
a bad idea?
or yeah, exactly.
How
Be-
is that a bad idea?
because it's not, they're not controlling it.
It's not their idea.
So, and like I said, Kennedy reiterated in an interview that his comments about lives destroyed was that 25% of autistic community that is severe and nonverbal.
And
And
when he
it's
meant lives destroyed,
the
he's
quality
talking
of
about
life.
he's talking about the kids who were, he thinks, this is his opinion, were perfectly normal when they were born and have become autistic because of
Environmental factors.
environmental factors.
Yeah, he's
Which
thinking
I
that
do believe there are some of those as well.
if they can find answers to the environmental factors,
Correct.
then where would these kids be without
Correct.
those?
That's what he is talking about. And if he can find the answer to that, please, please. You know, why? How is that? How is that a bad thing?
So if we go back to the stats, the 2018, 1 in 18 children versus 2022,
No, in 2018, it was 1 in 44.
I have 1 in 18 children,
In
not people.
2018,
Yeah. This was looking at from 2 years old to 17-year-olds. 1 in 18 children. And in 2020, 1 in 36. And in 2022, 1 in 31.
2018 was a big number. It was 1 in 44.
Well, that's what I had.
Well, it's not going to
Well,
go.
no. If it was 1 in 44, then the number would have gone down.
No, 1 in 44 in 2018. That was a bigger, wider range. And then in 2022, it was 1 in 31 kids. So 1 in every 41 kids in 2018.
Oh, maybe I wrote the 2018 one down wrong
Yeah.
because I said 18 in 2018.
Yeah.
Maybe I just wrote it down wrong.
Because
Okay,
that 1
whatever.
in 18 would be really bad.
Yeah, because 2020 it was 1 in 36 and 2022 1 in 31. So it was going down.
Right.
So I wrote that stat down wrong.
It was
Anyway,
going up. Yeah.
um, why would we not want answers if in 4 years
Right.
it has almost
Right.
so I decided to look at Europe.
United Kingdom has 700 per 100,000.
Right. So bear with me and follow this train of thought, okay?
Okay.
And this is going to wrap up why I wanted to do this.
All right.
And why it's relevant to this podcast.
All right.
So Europe overall, all the countries, is 1 in 68 children average.
Okay.
Iceland, 1 in 100. France, who has the least, is 1 in 144. United Kingdom is, like you said, 700 per 100,000. They are the highest.
Yep.
Sweden, 661.85 per 100,000. US, 603 per
Japan
100,000.
was 604.
Yeah, they are slightly edging us out. So some of that may be based on diagnostics and healthcare availability. So I started looking at the ethnicity stats. Now, white is 2.7% of population, Hispanic 3.3%, Black 3.7%, Asian 3.8%, and Native 3.8%. So I was like, let's look at our food, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Mediterranean countries, I specifically looked at them. Greece has a 0.94% in kids. Italy is like 1 in 126. France is considered the highest quality food in the world because they focus on fresh local ingredients with highest culinary standards, and they have the lowest autism rate. Isn't that interesting?
It's all food. It's all chemicals.
So,
it's chemicals.
Right. So that's my whole entire point of why I felt like this discussion tied in with the chemicals and tied in with exactly what we have been talking about
yes.
for the past year.
Have the clouds parted? You hear angels singing yet? Ah.
And I know people could argue with me, and that's an oversimplified thing of just looking at stats and
We cured autism. Stop eating shit.
but I know people who, and even back when Wyatt was young, we talked about this and the doctor's recommendations. They recommend certain diets for
But
autistic people.
there is a thing. Wyatt was seemed perfect. Okay, so here's another catch in the little kink in your little, not your, but Wyatt was perfectly normal. He was right on schedule for everything. He was actually early. He was early to talk. He said mama at 4 months old. It was insane. You were there in the room with me when we heard it.
I don't remember.
At 18 months old, he got that vaccine that blonde chick was bitching about.
Was it the MMR or the 4-in-1 or whatever?
And then it wasn't too much long after that he started going downhill.
Well, typically they do say that it starts to show up after 2, which is after that vaccine. I get that.
Yeah, at 18 months.
I mean, I get that. But there's also, if you want to talk about environmental factors, then yes, vaccines would fall into that, but so would food.
Yes, I agree. Food is definitely an issue. The main
So,
issue.
and here is going back to studies showing, they always want to cite
But I'm
studies.
not going to rule out some of those vaccines either.
Studies show, they want to argue with him, but studies show they want to say 90% is genetic. But again, we talked about being able to have that gene and then the environmental factors.
Right.
But they even say all these people agree. When I say these people, I'm talking about like the Autism Society and the Autistic
These
Advocacy
people.
Network. These people.
Yeah.
Environmental prenatal exposure to certain substances or medical conditions can influence development of autism. Environmental factors can interact with genes to influence the development and severity of autism. So if you believe that on your own site and stuff, why would you argue against the plan to have people look into especially environmental factors to try to figure it out so they could keep those environmental factors away from the kids? Like, I don't understand why everybody is freaking the fuck out.
Money.
No, I don't even think it's money, because if it was only about money, they wouldn't care. It's politicizing, because if it was their group who came up with this idea,
everybody has been programmed. If you're on that side, fight it. If you're on that side, fight it.
And
don't use your brain.
And they use the nuances in the verbiage. That's what I was saying when I was going through like what they're saying and what they agree with. But they want to talk about.
Said those people. She's talking about us. She must not like us.
He said epidemic. It doesn't qualify as an epidemic, and that language is harmful.
He must not know what he's talking about.
Let's not talk about. He said vaccines. That's been debunked, but we agree there's environmental factors, but it's not vaccines. Like,
let's take the nuances. What is important, people?
Our children.
Right. So what does it matter?
Trying to make them as healthy as possible.
We're both
we can, so if we can control environmental factors that cause cancer, like getting cigarettes out of school,
like toddlers, and let people do their job.
I mean, I just don't understand what it would hurt to have more research.
Correct.
And I mean, we talk about all the time, look at who's paying for the research, look at who's behind it. And I mean, maybe that's what they fear, is that if the government hands out these 15 grants, that they're only going to choose people who are going to support that. And we don't know that. They could choose 15 people and 7 of them say it's this and 7 of them say that. And until we choose them, they can't really argue with that fact. Like they're assuming that they're going to choose people who are going
that are
to
going to
agree
say
with
what
the
they want them to
vaccine thing or
say.
whatever.
Right. They're assuming they're going to say what he wants them to say.
Right. So
Yeah.
until he chooses them
And they
or
don't
they get
want them to
selected,
say, the thing is, they shouldn't be saying what somebody wants them to say. They need to be saying the truth.
well, we can only hope that happens. But we've seen time and time again with different things we've looked into
Everything that is politicized,
follows the money.
follow the money.
All the industry research, like for the corn syrup industry, all
Yeah.
that, it's always about the money.
And remember the commercials for corn? Corn is actually good for you. Buy corn oil. Corn oil.
Yeah,
You remember those commercials?
eggs are terrible for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whoever is paying the most money, that is who
right.
they'll say anything they want you to.
And like I said, I want to go back because I agree. I've seen both sides. I have people who are on both sides. We have experience with this in our family.
I have an autistic child.
You know, I had one who was diagnosed sensory processing disorder, which I know everybody's like, that shouldn't even be on the scale, which I agree.
Right.
I can see why emotionally people had a response that they did because most of them was a knee jerk response and most of it is going to be emotional. When you're talking about your children and your
When you are talking about your
experiences,
children, you get very
you were
emotional
going to be
very
emotional.
quickly.
I have never denied someone's feelings on the subject when they are emotional about that.
No.
But as a whole, I think we can be a little more analytical and step back and look at the things that we have talked about on this podcast before, the effects that are happening in our world, and say, okay, just stop, people, and just chill.
And I can wrap it all the way back around the toilet bowl to the very first thing that we talked about.
All right.
All right. All these people are getting emotional because our little brain chemicals are not insulated because of all the shit in the environment.
Yes. Go.
So you need to go get your dopamine and serotonin hits.
I'm getting them right now. I'm petting a cat. Did you
Petting
know
a
that can
cat,
help you?
eat your dark chocolate, take your hits, whatever you need to do.
Yeah. But just, oh my God, if people would just shut up
and
go
listen
and go about their business, just go fucking grow a garden and shut your mouths. Like, can
listen.
we all do that?
People, I would say something very vulgar, but I won't.
Yeah, I figured since he was trying to put his butt to the camera, and then I went to throw him down, and I threw him right on the dog.
So for those of you who are listening to the podcast, she just had a
cat butt in my face.
Cat butt in her face, and so
yeah.
Anyway, so
yeah,
everybody. I think if more people would just shut up and listen and process what they're hearing before they let the trap start running.
That's asking way too much of people, Tracy.
That was like me at 15 years old, 16 years old.
Well, I think that's kind of the mentality of our world right now as teenagers.
Teenagers, yeah. I mean, that's hip jerk reactions.
That's run your mouth. That's social media, is the whole teen idea of look at me. I want the attention. I want the viral views. I want to make money off of, blah, blah. I mean, I know we're here podcasting. Like, I see the hypocrisy in that statement. But we took several days to think about it and do some research before we started running our freaking mouths.
Right. And I mean, it's not like I have a 20-year-old autistic son.
Right.
I've been living with this for 20 years and researching, and
we have friends that have it.
My fucking brain trying to figure out what I did wrong.
Yeah.
So
anyway, we're going to leave it right there for you guys and come back next week with something. We keep saying every week, our next one's not going to be as volatile. Our next one's not going to be as hard hitting. We might get back to being our funny, farmy girl selves, but then shit gets said and we're like, nope, we got to talk about that.
The world just keeps going. But anyway, thank you for joining us if you're listening to our podcast
or watching us on YouTube.
And we'll catch you later.
Next time on the Dirty Old Hose. Later, taters.